Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good to see all your names, all your faces. Whether I can see your name or your face, I know that we're all together. Names and faces that I've seen every day, and some names and faces that I haven't seen in a while. And it's very sweet for all of us to be together in this space, in this sanctuary that defies space. Shabbat Shalom, Parshat Vayechi, the last parsha of the book of Genesis. Welcome to the end of the beginning. We close one book and we open a new one. Genesis blesses us with our creation narratives, with ancient universal myths, and with stories of our families that birth the Israelite people. Arriving and leave-taking, birth and death, feuds and harmony, beginnings and endings, and the spaces in between. We have grappled with and mourned the death of loved ones, as did all of our matriarchs and patriarchs. We have been isolated and alone like Joseph in a pit, or like Noah and his family in a floating pod. We have been building a new home in Cyber Sinai, forced out of one space, like Jacob and his family when famine hit the land. And we have been together each day, receiving the reality of the moment and practicing moving through transitions. How have you been managing the unknown? How have you been moving through transitions? I know that for me it's been difficult, challenging, exhausting, and also nourishing. Genesis is the story of the arc of life. It opens with the marvel of creation, of the natural world, and it closes with Jacob and his family gathered around his deathbed as he shares his last words with him. He says, Jacob says, "Gather around, that I may tell you what shall befall you in the days to come." Zev Wolf, a 19th century Hasidic Rebbe from the Ukraine, teaches us about this phrase, what will become of you. It's actually understood as, how will you be read at the end of days? On this verse, the medieval teacher, Rabbi Rashi, says, Jacob actually sought to reveal the end of the days, the eschaton, to them, but God's presence departed from Jacob and he didn't have a chance to say it. Jacob was going to tell us all what was going to happen next. But God did not want him to spoil the mystery. In this Hasidic teaching, a truly perceptive person can read the entire Torah in God's name, maybe as God's name, Yud He Vav He, and can find the blessed name within all of the details of the Torah stories. Our Torah study is the laboratory, is the studio, is the practice grounds to witness God in the minutiae, God in the mundane, God in the transitions, in the unknown, God as the mystery that weaves in between. We turn into the text and experience the Bible as our blueprint, experiencing the whole Torah as the name of God. In our engagement of our texts, we too enter into this holy narrative and are a part of this divine name, as our Talmud will teach us, that in the future generation, righteous people, righteous ones, will be called the Blessed Holy One by that name. We will enter into God's name through our study in community. What does it even mean to be a part of the holy name? What are we called to do? What must we say? We are called to do the work, to find our own way in, and learn what it means to be a part of this infinite, ineffable mystery. Zev Wolf teaches us, if a universally wise sage were to come forth announcing the good, telling each one of us, this is what you need to do, each one according to our own will and capacity, in order to reveal those permutations right now, who would not listen to such words? The trouble is that this powerful teaching would in fact overwhelm the free will that was given to each and every one of us. Each of us has to come to those arrangement of the creation's letters that we need to find on our own. Each one of us in our own pace, each one of us in our own level of awareness, with intense devotion and intention to connecting to God. Without this, our existence as part of creation has no meaning. What good is it then if a great sage would come and tell us how to make it happen, how to work the connection to be a part of the God's name? This is our secret to uncover. This is our secret to discover. So by cleaving to the wisdom of our tradition, learning from it, applying it, we become a part of the name of the Infinite One, the one who loves without end. No one can do this for us. We have to find our own doorway in. So we're all gathered around Jacob as Yisrael, God wrestlers, as Jacob is to reveal the answers about the future. But we don't get it. We are called upon to live it now, to live in and through the great mystery. In fact, there's a rabbinic legend that says that at that moment, when all the children were gathered around the bed with Jacob sitting there, lying there, that in fact, all of his children recited the Shema for the first time. Now we know the Shema comes later in Deuteronomy, but the rabbinic legend has Jacob's children saying, Shema Yisrael. Listen, Jacob, whose name is also Yisrael. Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, the source of all life, this source is one. Jacob, Dad, this great mystery of all life, we know it's one. Don't worry, we'll take it from here. It's okay, you don't have to tell us what comes next, Jacob, Yisrael. We will carry on your wisdom of seeking unity over diversity. As one family, we are stronger and more supportive together. And with this legend that guides us from the end of one book to the next, we can hear the words of the Shema prayers guiding Jacob's children and us through a great transition and transformative moment from the individual to a communal consciousness. So this past year has been unlike one we have ever experienced in recent times. We've been called upon to transform our lives and live in a constant state of an unknown. Our mortality has been brought to the forefront, and wouldn't it be wonderful if someone would just come and explain to us why all this is happening and how the future would unfold? But this would be of no value, as Rabbi Zev Wolf from Ukraine would teach us. We are called on as individuals and as a community to make sense of this mystery. We are called upon to learn how to live through difficult transitions. We are called upon to wake up to the preciousness of life in the face of death. This to me is what Genesis is coming to share with all of us. To marvel at creation, to awaken to our mortality, and to practice the sacred art of transitions. For me, it's not about forgetting 2020 or wishing for a better 2021. Though I understand this allure, looking at reality in this way can be distracting. It's about learning to embrace and to transform with what is arising in each new moment. And this, at times, can be uncomfortable, as the unknown of each moment can be disorienting, disquieting, and nerve-wracking. All of these emotions are, of course, heightened by living through this pandemic. Perhaps it's fitting that right now we arrive at the book of Exodus that we will begin studying on Sunday. Our Torah is teaching us how to move through transitions gracefully, how to balance wishing for a freedom to return to a daily life and not be consumed with anxiety of an unknown. Kierkegaard speaks of an anxiety as the dizziness of freedom. Anxiety is what can arise in the face of the unknown, in a reality that feels disorienting, in response to our suffering, or in meeting our present circumstances, whatever it might be. And it can also be experienced as a prelude to a transitory moment leading us all to freedom. The book of Exodus will lead us all towards freedom. Mark Nebo teaches us that perhaps the first time we experience such a disorientation is when we learn how to walk. When we move away from the wall or the chair, away from the guiding arms of mommy and daddy. Certainly, the ability to walk is worth that discomfort in transition. It happens again when we first fall in love. When we first move our care beyond the walls we are so accustomed to. Likewise, the ability to love beyond our walls is well worth the dizziness of taking new steps. The truth is that every fresh experience has this dizziness of freedom that we must move through. Every time we reach beyond what is familiar, there is this necessary acclimation to what is new. It's the doorway to all learning. We needn't be afraid of it or give it too much power. We simply have to keep leaning into what we are learning. We will travel through a new book in the coming weeks that will teach us about the power of community, and we will lean into all that we are learning and perhaps lean into all that we are feeling as well. Exodus calls upon us to extend our circle to welcome each other into this journey ahead. On the threshold of this new book, we too are on the threshold of a time where the possibility of freedom can begin to be felt. And in this moment, as in all moments, we are called upon to practice the sacred art of transitions. We are called upon to learn from our anxiety and to see it as a teacher guiding us towards freedom. To breathe in the mystery of life and death and allow it to birth wonder into every moment, and recognizing that all of it is part of the infinite name of God. For each of us is that sage that orders the letters of creation into a holy permutation. Each of us is called to live the mystery in our stillness, in our movements, and the spaces in between. Welcome to the end of the beginning. There is this beautiful ornate doorway, decked with all of our past experiences. And as we step through the threshold, perhaps pause and kiss the mezuzah. And remember the words that the Shema is contained within it. Our ancient amulet that reminds us all to fill our transitions, all of our moments with love, that it's all one. If perhaps you've forgotten about your mezuzah or you don't have one, this is a perfect time. Go get yourself a mezuzah, or perhaps open up to a mezuzah consciousness in every step and every breath. The blessing that we say when we place the mezuzah on our doorway, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likboa mezuzah. Praise are you, source of all life, mystery and majesty of the universe, who has sanctified us with pathways of goodness to create structure in our spontaneity. This is how I translate it. You see that the blessing of the mezuzah, likboa mezuzah, means to make permanent, keva, all of our movements. You can hear the word zuz, to move, in mezuzah. There's this dynamic pull in the placing of a mezuzah of fixing something, but let it be fixed in movement, in flexibility. We're called upon to move through our transitions through grace and love. That's the symbol of the mezuzah on every doorway. To approach each of these doorways, each threshold, with stability and with spontaneity. Likboa mezuzah. So this is our practice now. For each and every one of us, as we move through one breath to the next, from one step to the next, from one book to the next, and yes, from one secular year to the next. That the blessing may be that we will be strong and for each other, but also flexible with each moment that arises. That together we practice this sacred art of transitions. We wish farewell to Bereshit as we recite tomorrow the last lines, and we welcome Exodus Shemot. Shabbat Shalom.